All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And I'm joined again today by two special guests, Easton and Warren. They hate it when I call them that, but that's why I did it. So
we don't care anymore, Dad.
I don't care whether you care. So
Good.
How do you like them apples?
Fine, then.
We got a cool topic for you today. We're going to talk about some summer scouting. We're going to talk a little bit about, we have an update from last week's podcast where we talked about some laws that were being introduced and that or 2 weeks ago, sorry. Some laws that were being introduced by the state of Iowa. We've got some confirmation that certain ones of those have definitely gone through. So anyhow, and then Easton's got an update from last week's podcast. And so
before we get into, there is further ado. If you are listening on Apple,
it's further to do.
Nuh-uh.
In this particular case.
Yeah, but without further ado.
Yeah, that would be like introducing someone. Here they are.
We're saying
with
there's
further ado.
I'm playing a play on word and saying with further to do.
That was a dumb pun.
Well, I'm just explaining.
Yeah, it was.
With further ado.
To do.
Okay.
Oh, my gosh.
Further ado, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, and we know you are because we can see the analytics, and you enjoy it, please leave us a review. I have forgot to ask you guys that for many, many, many weeks, but it really helps the podcast grow, and it helps us get out there to more people. So if there's anything that you find funny or valuable or good in the podcast and you're listening, we'd really appreciate it if you guys would go and leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. And I shouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to. We have something really, 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 really cool that's coming new. Don't worry, I didn't tell them yet. And we will put you guys in for it. And it is sick.
Put you in for it as in what?
That we'll do the same thing as the last one.
People that leave reviews,
they'll get one of the very first ones ever.
Hint, hint, you better leave a review, otherwise you're going to be angry.
And they are sick. I promise you that. It's pretty freaking cool. You've never seen anything like it. You can swear on that. And so that goes out to everybody except for HTFD32.
Oh, boy.
He says, you guys are the best. You guys are amazing and a blast to listen to on Apple. So he's the first winner. We appreciate you. You guys want to be
that down,
like
we are going to forget.
HTFD32. Nick, will you please make a note of that? Write it down.
We're relying him to do that?
Like right now. Thank you.
What do you think you're going to do? Think about it in an hour?
Yeah.
That's valid. He does get to watch it again.
I still would like you please put it up.
Hey,
okay.
I have
Then
more
did you want to
faith
do
in you.
YouTube shout-outs, or did you want to go into your portion first?
You do shout-outs real quick, and then we'll go into, because mine's just going to flow in right into our topics.
Okay. YouTube, you guys aren't getting chastised today because you guys have been absolutely rocking, and we're getting a lot of new people in on the YouTube, so we really, really appreciate it. We're almost to 1,000 subs on there. You guys help us keep it rolling. But since it is growing so much, for the essence of time this week, I'm not going to read everybody's comment, but I will shout everybody out. Jeremy Rupsick, per usual, loyal. We love you, Jeremy. We appreciate you.
See the angry one? Which Rupsick
No, that's
brother
one
was
of
the
his
angry
brothers.
one? Okay, so you're good.
Because Nick put the wrong deer in there. Jet Huff 7548. He said he hit a decent buck early last year high, had a clean pasture. About a month later, when I saw him walking around, he was fine. Saw him again during shed season, and he just had a bare spot on his shoulder. Northern Hillbilly Adventures, appreciate you, buddy. Eric S. _007_.
He was last time, too.
Yes, and he knows it better than us. He says, just want to say congrats. You guys have been doing this for 100 weeks now and never seem to disappoint.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Keep up the good work, and you'll be bigger than Joe Rogan. We appreciate it, buddy.
We appreciate your faith in us.
We might have to get some mushrooms on here. Travis Huddleworth through 630. You the man. William Ayers -SP4TT. Jake DeLee. Andy Platfoot 6126. That was for his kid because Jake DeLee says his kid loves hearing his name on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it again. Jake DeLee.
Go, Dad.
Kevin McKenna 8948. Chaz B.405 and Bucky Doe Downer 9040, and he's been super loyal too. We appreciate you, buddy. And so that should. Oh, he also told me that I need to get off of my high horse on the mechanicals because he shoots fixed blades.
Oh.
So,
well, that's an issue. We all shoot mechanicals.
I like Bucky Doe Downer though, so he can keep shooting fixed blades.
Hey, you keep doing you, man. If you're confident with it, send it.
Yep, agreed.
My turn, right?
Yep.
Okay. So last week, recap, we did talk a little bit about No Man's Land, the myths behind it, or non-myths behind it. And we had a situation last week that one of our main squeezes sent us, old Jake.
Maybe young Jake.
And he actually might, he gives me a reference to that. But anyways, so we were curious about some different things as far as like how long that deer had been shot until he had gotten an opportunity to shoot it, and such, so on and so forth. So without further ado,
that's appropriate.
I'm going to read this one. He said, glad I could be a part of what I thought was a pretty awesome podcast. Thank you, guys. But just to clear things up, yes, you can hunt with a bow throughout all 3 of our deer seasons, so archery, gun, and muzzleloader season. I forgot where's he at? Ohio, PA? Ohio. So they are allowed to, that was one of them, they are allowed to use their bows during any of the seasons. He said he's not a fan of shotguns or straight wall cartridges, so he uses a muzzleloader. The deer he shot was completely healed with a nickel-sized scab from where the arrow had entered. No ways of telling when it was hit, other than we know it was healed by the time he shot it. It was in the earlier season or last year, he's not sure, one of the two. So he also attached this picture. Nick, I'll be able to get this to you. I don't know if that'll tell us anything, but he got the arrow and broadhead out of it and everything.
He said it was completely healed and everything, right?
Yeah. He said the only thing that was there was a scar, like a nickel-sized scar, or scab, excuse me. Well, if he says it's a scab, then I'd say it's probably
that year.
But anyways, so that was just to clear some stuff. But if the deer was going to
die from that hit,
you would think
without infection, it probably would have
already died.
Yeah. So the hit would not have killed it. We can pretty safely assume.
Probably not infection
there
either,
is
really.
A chance. We're not vets,
and
we don't have tests and everything else, so we don't know if the infection would have killed him or not. But if he wasn't infected, he was clearly living just fine and had an arrow lodged in him still. So there is our wrap-up on last week's, some of the questions that we had. And now, without further ado, we will go on to the next, and that is 2 different ones. Warren has an update for us on our, 2 episodes ago, or 3 episodes maybe even now, of our Iowa laws. Very interesting for all of us. We've all been intrigued about it, that they're talking about getting rid of trail cameras and some other items that you hunt with on public land specifically. There was a little talk about private land too, but we don't have anything on that. So we're going to talk about, Warren found an update from the Iowa DNR.
Yep, so this was a message that somebody asked the DNR on it exactly, and so they sent them a message in Messenger. They said trail cameras, cellular cameras, and ground blinds, similar to any hunting equipment except for tree stands, cannot be left unattended any time of the year on state-owned game management areas. Tree stands can be left on public land from 7 days prior to the start of deer seasons until 7 days after the close. This rule applies to both cellular and non-cellular trail cameras. Given that trail cameras are generally left unattended when used by hunters, this rule effectively bans that form of use on public land.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know there's a lot of people saying it's not in the regs yet. Well, I'm sure they're going to update the regs. It'll be in there. So
they do a whole freaking.
They usually put,
it's paper too.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to print all that and then get it all put in. Well, actually, I know that's what they're doing because all they have on their website is the PDF version of it. So whenever they start printing out the 2024 regs for the updated stuff is when it'll be on there.
Nobody's claimed that state agencies are the most high tech.
No,
I think the one thing that we should I think the one thing that we should clarify there, because I do think that in our previous podcast we were under the assumption, or what we thought was, that it was only going to be cellular cameras, And what you just read says
No, I
all
don't.
trail
We
cameras
clarified in the
Okay.
last one it was just trail cameras
in
as a
general.
whole.
And,
Yep.
But now the other question is, and I don't know enough about the Iowa public lands here, it's only the state-owned stuff. So if it, like, I think there's some,
I have.
or like what is the Historical Society or something owns some ground? Don't they allow some?
Well, it's different.
I can't remember the organization. I wonder if that you're going to want to make sure you check very thoroughly before you put a trail camera on any piece of ground that other people can be hunting, basically.
Most ground in Iowa is state-owned.
I know what he's
think.
talking about because there's a couple different programs where, like, I could own some land, and if I wasn't doing something with it, I could put it in a program with the DNR that allows it to be hunted as though it's public land, but they don't own it.
Yes.
Yep.
And there's typically those are already a lot more strict of laws on it anyways. Like, they're very specific on even what animals you can hunt. Like, you can't even coyote hunt some of them and stuff like that. So I think that's what you're
Yes.
referring
That's
to.
what I'm
And
just saying.
there's a bunch of different names
Right.
that you'll find for different ones of those. But I think as a whole, you're probably going to want to play it safe if you're hunting anything like that. There's your law.
I wonder what the driver of was that. The driver of that was.
I don't know, because I didn't see anything about it before. Like, typically you have, like, dilemmas or something that came about, or somebody broke some law, kind of law, or they needed to adjust something because somebody's taking advantage of something, and that's what sets a law in place, or the attempt to.
Well, I think
don't
the
know
one
where
that
this
we
came
don't get
from.
enough information about is how many phone calls are they taking.
Yeah.
And if they're getting a lot of phone calls, or they get people that are writing in or emailing them and contacting them basically and saying, this is an issue. I'm tired of this. I've had my camera stolen. I've had
That would
this
be a
happen,
big one, I think.
and eventually they're like, we don't need to deal with this when we can control that.
I think just about every single person that has hunted public enough, including myself, which has not hunted a ton of public, has had issues with people tampering with cameras, stealing cards, or stealing cameras in general. I would see that being a very large issue, because they're not going to call the cops. They're probably going to call the DNR.
Right.
Say, hey, people are out here doing this.
But the thing I think is kind of funny. There's a whole bunch of comments. People saying, "Oh, government can't tell me what to do. I'm still going to use them and this and that." And I'm like, you're just not very bright, because then if you're on a place where it's public and there's a whole bunch of other guys
that
hunting
are
it,
listening to
and
it.
they are abiding by the law, and they don't get to use a trail camera, and then you think you're just going to go put a trail camera out there and nobody's going to touch it,
Or
you're
if-
pretty stupid.
Even
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't say anything, it's pretty easy when nobody else is using them. There's one dude that is.
Right, like, but you just think nobody's gonna. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, well, that guy's just breaking the rules. We'll just be okay with that." No, I highly doubt it. Somebody's going to tamper with your camera, there, bud.
He'll get caught pretty quick. That's the same type of guy that probably posts all of his trail camera pictures too. So
I don't
Be
know.
able
I
to
know.
see that pretty easily. Oh, that's a good familiar hill. How did you get that good camera picture?
Like the guy that was shooting elk in Yellowstone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That was got to be one of the dumbest things you could have ever done.
Thing is, he got away with it for a long time.
Yeah, so how in the world do you make the mistake one time of taking a picture with a freaking mountain in the background that is very obvious?
I don't think that he did it one time. I think that eventually because
somebody just figured
one
it
of the
out.
one it wasn't an elk that I don't know if it's the same guy. There's been more than one, but in the one he shot a sheep. And they knew the sheep. He hung around the gate. I want to say it was on the east side of Yellowstone,
Probably had a name too.
and he killed that ram. And they saw the picture, were able to put two and two together that's inside the park. And then I think they went back and looked at some of his other pictures, and they were from the same place.
The one he's talking about is
All
the
elk.
elk. Yeah. He was smoking some big bulls, wasn't he?
Oh, he was killing tankers
Yeah.
every year. I would be
Wonder
really
why.
curious to know how many people sit right there on the on the
line.
park boundaries, and try and call them across.
Well, they will also tell you, though, that, like, Dad with the Oryx down in,
New Mexico,
New
yeah.
Mexico, that you can, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. You can see the animals know the lines very well.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how
That
well
they
they
know
do
to-
know that.
Yeah, I was actually, to clarify what Easton's talking about, I killed an oryx 3 years ago now in New Mexico. And honestly, I was surprised that the inside the missile range, I thought it was going to be like a high fence. Like
Yeah.
there'd be no doubt that this is the missile range. It's not. It's just a ranch 5-strand barbed wire fence. And so they didn't really pay much attention to it, but you knew where the fence was. You as a hunter could not make the mistake. You knew if you, because there was no other fences anywhere else. I mean, if you cross that fence, you're not where you're supposed to be.
There is one.
You know what I
that
think every time I hear somebody say barbed wire fence,
like Bob is sitting on a wire.
I know. I just see all these little heads as the barbs
Bob
of a dude that's Bob, and then they're like singing a song. Hey, I'm Bob. I'm Bob. I'm Bob.
This is. You could have told us a story like that when we were. How did you miss it? How did you not know that he had like some mental issue or ADHD or something?
I knew the day that we dropped him that we were going to have problems.
But it's not barbed wire. It's barbed wire.
It's just a slang.
Yeah,
You don't pay attention to it.
I know that it's barbed wire, but I've so used to saying a barbed wire fence that I just say that.
There's no barbed wire fence.
I'll bet you now.
Is it Osceola or Osceola?
A Bob.
He says it very distinctly, barbed wire. I don't know why.
Just like everybody agrees with me on what turkeys say.
I'm a llama.
I'm a llama.
No, they
so
do
accurate.
not.
That's all they hear after that. When they
Distraction.
gobble, they're just saying, I'm a llama.
The only other thing I was going to say is there's a place that we were talking to somebody. I cannot recall. I want to say it was in one of the Dakotas or like somewhere up there, that there is a place where you cannot hunt. Well, you're not. They actually don't want hunting in the even outside of this one chunk. And they said that they've got to keep it's buffalo and elk, if I remember right, inside of that area. But they don't have fences or anything like that because it's just a park, basically. That they'll literally watch these elk and stuff during seasons could get to that area or get to that line spot and right down the line. There's no fence there for them or anything, but they know.
I think you're thinking of when Sam was telling us about his bison.
It might have been.
Yeah. Because
when they step across, they're free game.
Yeah,
basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, I would say back to our actual topic here. What I say we all give an opinion on what do you think it's going to happen, and then we can move on to our next, because the next topic always gets heated, especially because the one sitting to my right.
Well, I still think it's somewhat relevant to this topic, but
yeah, it's just going to pertain to everybody. But I'll go first. I think that the public land, I think you're going to see a lot of people angry about it, and I think that if it sticks for a little while, nobody's going to give a crap in a couple years. It's just going to be just one of the laws, and everybody's going to forget about it. But at the same time, I do think that your quality of, I think your numbers, and then also the quality of deer, buck-wise, is going to go up. I also think that you may see a drop in the amount of guys hunting certain spots. And I think that you may start seeing some of these places where you used to be able to find a little hole. Like I get back there far enough, something like that, nobody's been there or whatever, the guys are going to be able to start going back to, because there's not somebody that has intel on it back there, that they only had to make that trip one time, go drop a cell cam. Now they know, okay, and then until I see a big boy show up, I don't really care. So I think as a whole it's going to benefit everybody. I think it's going to benefit the deer, and I think it's also going to benefit the hunters, whether they like it. But
yeah.
It's going to benefit them in a certain way.
Yeah.
But
what about it? There's a whole bunch of people that say that the deer are going to get smaller because now everybody's going to shoot the first deer that comes by.
They're already doing that. The amount of young deer killed on public land is like.
Well, especially if you
ridiculous.
have 150 some inch deer that you're getting pictures of on public, I think the amount of guys that are going to pass that deer on public is like probably 5%.
Here we go.
Or less. But dude, because the only ones I could even think of that would ever even consider something like that is like a brook. Anybody else, they're shooting that deer on public every day, all day.
Yeah, but the trail camera doesn't change that.
I think that I think they may shoot a smaller deer because they don't know that one's there.
Yeah,
I think that yes, you're going to
wrong. I don't know.
Small deer get shot too, but I think that
it's a theory for
you're going to get some that slip through, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to slip through now.
Yeah.
Did you want to go next?
I don't matter. I thought you were going
that's
next.
That's the only person
I'll
left
go.
is David.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the best thing. I think it's absolutely awesome. I'd be stoked if they did it on private too. I would
punch you square in the face.
All about it. Well, I think that it's a little hypocritical to be like, yeah, that's awesome. They're taking them off public, and then we're using them on private.
It's not hypocritical when you've purchased the land.
Well, like we said, we already. I think that I would be ecstatic if they did that across the board. I think that you're going to see bigger deer. I think that it's the cell cams. Like I've said before, I think cell cams is the number one reason that the deer aren't as big as they used to be. I would imagine on public, I think, like you said, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be really upset about it. But for the guys that are willing to put in that work and put in the extra effort, I think that they are going to get a much better hunting experience. I would love to know on one piece of public, like how many cameras were on that before.
Oh,
I would bet it's got to be a pile.
I lost when I tracked a deer last year.
Yeah,
with Christo, and I lost it. It was not. It's you know which one it is. Just not very far away. It's I don't know, like 30 acres, 40 acres.
I don't know which one you're talking about now.
Well, anyways, it's not very big, and we tracked. I mean, we were pretty much through the entire piece. We were on the trail, but it was going all through everything. And I was at like 7 or 8 when I was just like, screw it. This is ridiculous. I'm like, I just started waving at all of them because I felt bad. I was like, sorry guys, but I got blood, so we're gonna keep going. But it was just all like freaking camera after camera after camera, left and right.
Well, that's where I think that you'd run into issues because if you do have a guy, I would think a lot of your guys that are buying 20, 25 cell cams probably aren't hunting that much public.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, the guy that was hunting private stuff and would put a camera on public in a spot or two just in case, now you're not going to have to worry about him either.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to help everybody as a whole because now you're not going to have all these other people constantly in spots.
Okay.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. The only other thing I think they could have possibly done that may have been another alternative or a happy medium would have been just no cell cams
alone
and just traditional trail cameras. But you're still going to have people having to go in there and check those. So I see that too if they're trying to have less disruption. But if you wanted people to still be able to at least be getting some pictures, I think that would have been a kind of a happy medium.
Yeah.
But then at the same time too, that would be kind of hard to regulate at that point.
Well, I'm going to be a fence rider, and I mean, I have an opinion both way. I can see both sides of the spectrum. The one that I don't think that you are considering, yes, the hunting could get better, or the deer could get better because people don't know what's there. So therefore, but then you have the opportunity that a guy's sitting there and he shoots a deer that because he doesn't know what's out there.
That he's going to take something smaller.
The ones that benefit the most, I believe, in this is going to be the gun hunters. Because those bucks are going to be out there, and when they come through and make their big push, those deer are there now. So I think you're going to see the archery hunters kill rate go down. I don't think they'll kill as many because, and I'm saying that because I think too many people are relying on their trail cameras to kill deer. Yeah. And I think the guys that can adapt, the Brooks and those guys that maybe they were using trail cameras to kill their deer, they're also hardcore hunters, and they will figure out what they need to figure out to continue to kill deer. Yep. That's been going on since hunting started. The guys that put the time in and invest the time, they've taken whatever was available at the time, and they still got it done.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that goes. I think that this could be I think when you talk about private, I think this could be the state taking a look and see what happens on public, and if it works well on public, if it gives them the result that they're looking for, and I'm not sure what that result is, other than maybe they're just stopping the annoying phone calls. I don't know. I mean, but if it works like they want it to, I could see them coming back and saying statewide, we're going to get rid of them.
That was going to be my next question is, do you think that if this goes really well, do you think they'll switch to everything?
They could. I think that they seriously could. And again, I'm right there on the fence because I hunted when we didn't have trail cameras, or I hunted when our trail cameras were the size of a 5-gallon bucket. And so you didn't have a whole bunch of them to put out. And hunting there was something about sitting in a tree not knowing what was coming that was fun. I'm fully invested in, I love trail cameras. I haven't like dove into the cellular bug, but as far as trail cameras, I love using trail cameras to know that a deer exists, and then I just apply what I've learned over the years of hunting to see if I can kill that deer. I never took the traditional trail cameras and put them in multiple places to figure out the travel pattern of this deer. He's coming into the field this way in the morning at 8 o'clock, and he's going out in the evening at 6 o'clock. I never did that.
I've attempted.
and
I've
so
sure tried.
I've never used trail cameras for that particular reason. So in my opinion, it wouldn't bother me if they did away with them.
What do you think it would do to the deer here if it was statewide?
Again, it's kind of a twofold deal. I mean, I don't know if as many deer would get killed, and in some areas like where I live, that could be detrimental because we have too many deer, period. But I think it's
How's that detrimental though? Because you still need to you need to shoot a pile of does.
That's the whole only thing is
there's not very many people around that are shooting excessive amounts of does. Typically, you find the guys.
His neighbor shoots a crap pile.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You find a couple guys that are trying to do that, and they're shooting a ton, but it's not your average guy that's the average hunter going out there and shooting. Even if they were shooting 4 or 5 does in some of these areas, that would help a ton.
What does trail cameras have to do with
I don't think I don't think that I know a single guy that has used a trail camera to identify where does were at to go in and kill them. It's strictly bucks that guys are after when it comes to trail cameras, or coyotes, or bobcats, or turkeys. You know, you're using.
That would be another thing that would bother me. I've got a couple cameras that I've found dens for coyotes. Some of them are just to see if I could get something cool of a coyote.
So how's that detrimental to the numbers, though?
Well, because what could end up happening is guys are not. They're not hunting as much, or they are hunting as much, but now they're not there as long because they're not waiting on that. Do they shoot 3 or 4 does in the time that they're waiting for a buck, the buck that they're looking for to show up? So the guy kills 3 or 4 deer. Now, like you said, he doesn't know what's out there. Here comes a pretty good deer. He shoots it. He's done. He doesn't go back to kill does. I don't know. I don't know.
I see what you're getting at.
You know, I don't know. And then are the gun hunters going to pick up the surplus of extra bucks that are left out there? Is that who it's really going to benefit? Is those guys, because the bucks made it now because their trail camera picture wasn't everywhere and people weren't all targeting them, and so now they're living, and then they live until where they show up in a big group of guys in orange shoot them.
I don't know. We sound crazy. I feel like we sound like we're skepticizing like no other.
Well, I mean, it's kind of unknown.
It's a theory. It's 100%.
I don't know. My personal opinion is I don't think it's a bad thing to go the direction that the Iowa DNR is going. That's my own personal opinion, but at the same time, it does affect me because I have trail cameras and I like to use them, and so I'm just saying, if you gave me the option to hunt a piece of property, you want to use trail cameras or you don't want to use trail cameras, and however you decide, that's what everyone else is going to have to do. I would probably go no trail cameras. But now you're talking to a guy that's 56 that's got a lot of hunting experience behind him of when there wasn't any. So I got something to fall back on. The guy who's 26 years old that's just gotten started a few years ago, he hadn't had anyone teach him, and he's learned a lot about what he's doing from trail cameras. It's a harder decision for him, and I get it. He's never had the experience without it.
I honestly kind of feel as though trail cameras for new hunters are nothing but a problem, because they see all those pictures and they see the photos of them all the time, and then they don't understand why they're not there when they sit there. And so then I think they end up hunting their cameras constantly because they see the pictures, and then they're under the understanding that this deer should be here, and they don't understand why they aren't. And so I think it hurts them more than anything.
I'm curious,
but
time will tell, as the old saying goes.
I want it to happen because I'm telling you, I would love. That's the way we could get some reports. We should go back and look at the record books up until trail cameras were introduced or became a mainstream thing, and then from that time till cell cams were introduced, and then see what your quality difference looked like. Because I think overall, are more big deer getting killed? Yeah, I would say they are, but I would say that there's less mega big deer getting killed. Like 240 plus. These ridiculous deer that Iowa used to be, you
could also argue
known
that has
for.
nothing to do with the trail camera.
No, but
I think it's because none of them get by anymore because they're already huge at 4.
But you could also make exactly what you're saying. You could flip that and argue it against you on that, meaning.
Not if the data supports it.
No, but what I'm saying is where you're saying they're not getting through because guys have trail camera pictures of them. How many of them are being let go because guys have trail camera pictures of them?
They can identify.
They can identify that deer. No, he's 4. We're going to let him go one more year. And if you got the right neighbors, he lives on.
Okay, well, let's just take BG. How many of them are letting a 190-inch 4-year-old go?
We don't have the right. We don't have the right
I'm not
neighbors, and
either.
maybe we're not the. But there are people that do.
Well, but a whole bunch of them probably would never be passing BG. And then if they didn't know he was there, BG makes it another year, and BG's 200. And then if they don't know he's there the next year,
that would be passing him.
I was going to say, I think there's more than you think.
I've got like a list of 5 in my head that just popped off that would pass that deer solely because they can guarantee he's 4.
I can think of 1.
I can think of, I've got at least 4 right now.
Not counting the Drurys or anyone like that. Who?
We're not going into this.
Yeah,
yet,
I don't think
okay?
we'll
we'll
have
go
to
to.
beep 'em
I don't
out
think
then.
we're going to throw these names out there, but
'Cause
I can
only
think of a couple.
1.
It does not matter. Okay.
Right.
2, I
So
guess.
onwards, we're going over the same freaking podcast.
So let's move on to summer scouting because we have the ability to use trail cameras still at this point.
So we are going to talk about summer scouting, as David just said, but whether it's useful or not and what kinds of tactics we're doing for summer scouting, because I think that we've done this way like 2.5 years ago, but this is kind of an updated version, I think, because my opinions have changed a little bit. Warren's I don't think have changed at all, and then Dad's I don't think have changed much either, maybe a little bit, I don't know. But anyways, number one, just to give us a baseline, what kinds of things can you even be doing for summer to be scouting? I think there's a lot. There's a lot, and I think it depends on how you look at it. But go ahead.
Well, I think the number one that's new, I think if we talk about doing something that we never did before or hadn't done it to the extent, is putting in these grizzly water troughs.
Oh, yeah.
Because and putting a camera on that, it is not
Is that
bait.
really scouting, though?
Well, we
opinion,
did that
it
on a. We purposely went over there and put a camera on it and stuff to see if there's if that's going to be drawing anything to that for being a water source throughout the summer, as well as them having some conveniently located food with it, like a large food source in a field. Because we've never even had a camera like up there or anything. I don't think
not
really
over there.
So we wanted to see if it's going to be giving us, if there's going to be deer consistently hanging out in there. And from what I can tell, I just told Dad I need to go check. But every time now, I was driving in there and doing stuff, and I wouldn't see much. And I have been seeing, I think it's a combination of having a large amount of water right there for them and having the amount of food that's right there. I'm pulling into that spot now, and I'll bust anywhere from 5 to 6 deer and a bunch of turkeys, everything. And the deer are bedding in the middle of the freaking field right there now, which I've never seen before.
I don't really think that's scouting, but I definitely think it'll work.
Well, it's an idea to see if that's going to keep them there.
Yeah.
But that's just one small thing.
I guess my point was it's something we're doing in the summertime that we hadn't done before.
Yeah.
We did do that one time, though.
We did.
And it worked.
And it did work.
Yeah.
But I would say this, that the where that could come into play for scouting is if like I've already set myself up for, I don't want to allow myself to hunt as hard early October because I end up freaking in December no matter what I end up doing. And you may as well go shoot your does, do whatever. But the only thing that I was going to allow myself to do is if I have a buck that I'm wanting to shoot that is somewhat relative to a pattern or something for those first couple days, because our season starts when they're probably going to be out of it anyways, but we've known some guys to have them and stuff. I think that could be a really, really, really good spot that it's convenient for them that they have their water there and their food and stuff. I think that the chances of having one of our decent bucks in that spot, a little more consistent, hopefully, because he has everything right there, could help. And that would be directly correlate to something that you've implemented throughout the summer and then can apply into fall.
I think summer scouting is a big deal.
So that's just one that's like a tiny thing. I mean, an outlier, I would say.
On the
What
water.
are some of our What are some of our main ones? I would say driving around and just being in the area
with
of some of your
binoculars and a
places.
spotting scope or a camera of some sort and filming them. And here's where I think that the summer is really important, is because two things. One is, let's just say you're checking a field right by your house or a bean field, and I'm just saying, number one, the summer scouting part of that is it's just freaking fun.
Yeah, for us, we're spoiled.
I mean, it's
like no other.
it's fun to drive down the country road and look for deer. I mean, I don't care where you live. I've done it my entire life, from Virginia, Arkansas, Montana to here, and I took you guys, and it was a great place to introduce a new hunter because you'd see lots of game and things like that, and look at what, oh boy, and they're not freaking out typically at that time of year, so you can see them and they stay there a lot. But the other part, I guess, that as my progression in hunting has come along, is that I start seeing, okay, I found these deer, and the same deer come out in the field night after night during the summer. Well, those deer may not be there come the fall when we're hunting them, but I know that deer existed. I know he made it through the year. I've now, okay, he's there, and he might disappear, but he may wander back in, so I know that he's out there. The other thing is the field that you might be checking might not be right by your house. That deer may end up where you hunt. You know, he may move. And so I think summer scouting can pay big dividends. I don't know when we get into stand placement and blind placement and wind direction and going travel corridors, going to and from food sources and going to bedding. That doesn't change as much to me, or it doesn't. I'm not relying. I should have already recognize that. I mean, I should have already picked up on that. I should already have. The best time to do a lot of that is in the spring, when you can see it. It's really hard to see those trails and things like that now, but it can still help for sure. And then when I still believe that it's the best time to hang stands and get stuff in place is if you know of an area that you discovered in January or February or March, when you're out shed hunting, and you didn't find any sheds, but you found this, oh my gosh, look at all these rubs, and you want to hunt that area, and it's right for the wind and it's right for the food source.
That ain't summer scouting.
No. What I'm saying is summer is when you want to take action.
Or you could do it then.
Yeah, you could, but
But summer, that's sure, that may be the time period you're putting it up, but you're going off information that you got from shed season.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know Warren doesn't do a ton, I don't think. Well, I know he does one of the ones I do, which is driving around a lot because it's fun and just watching them and stuff. But my number one that I've tried to back off from summer scouting because I have found that I enjoyed putting like for us in Iowa, you can put food out and do whatever you want. I mean, I think you can even do it during the season as long as it's not,
as long as you're not
they're
hunting
not coming to or from there. But I don't. I do food blocks and stuff during the summers, and I love doing some of those simply for the fact that I like to see them growing. And then the other thing that I've been trying to do, I've just been awful about keeping up on it, is keeping mineral and stuff out in like those little buckets that you got right now. And I started that in April, which solely for the fact.
Tell them why you use the buckets.
Yeah, the buckets that I'm talking about, they're not buckets. They're 55-gallon drums that Dad has cut off the bottom. There's 2 feet left with that hole in the bottom of a 55-gallon drum, so that I go in or he goes in and we'll dig a hole with a post hole digger and then set that drum on top of it, and then that hole is right over the hole of the 55-gallon drum is right over the hole that we just dug in the ground. So that way any water or anything, if I'm putting mineral powders, stuff like that would typically soak into the ground. And if you don't know, that anything that is containing any bit of mineral, like your salt or any of your mineral blocks, things like that, will soak into the ground. And then that is there for a very long time. And it's not very easy to get out of the ground. Like you're going to end up digging a freaking crap load to get it out, to where if you were to have that, even if you were not doing anything wrong, you get checked by the DNR or something and they test that soil, you're bopped right there. So we go through extensive process to be able to let that drain deep into the soil, so that when we pull that out, and that's only if it rains enough or we get enough water there, but we pull that out, I can cover it up with dirt, number one, that's fresh dirt, and number two, we'll put like a big plywood board or something over it, deer don't touch it anymore. So when I go do that, my main purpose was for the health of the deer, because you have the does that are going to be having fawns.
And then recovering from having
and then recovering from that, and then you have the fawns that are going to be on the ground, and then you also have your bucks in the biggest time of the year that they're using protein like no other to grow their antlers. So the scouting side of that would be, I like to see the bucks really growing. I think it's really cool. But the bad part about that is that last year, Warren probably sat with me he did it just because he would look at all the trail cameras because he knows I'm doing the work and he ain't going to go do it. So it's something fun for him to watch. And he was 100% right. He's like, there's not really a point in this, because I was watching like 2 different bucks on the same piece that Joey killed his, that I had all kinds of pictures of these little suckers freaking growing, and they were gnarly, like 2 really cool bucks that I really liked. And he's like, just prepare yourself. I mean, the chances of you having him there during the fall are probably not going to happen. And he'll tell you, he's right, a lot of people tell you, their summer ranges may not be exactly what they are during the winter or the fall when you're hunting them. He was 100% right, because I had like 10 or 15 different bucks, and the 2 that were really cool and different, I was like, man, that would be cool, really cool for Joey to get a shot at too, for sure. I never saw it. Like, after they shed their velvet, I think I got 1 picture of them with hardhorn, and never saw them again. Now, I also had more deer come in during the fall that were new deer. So that part to me has made me kind of back up on my summer scouting, because it is fun, but it's also a lot of work. I would be doing things like that more so for the fact of, let's try to get them. I'm never going to be able to feed. Yeah, 1, I enjoy it, and number 2, to at least try to help them a little bit. My opinion on minerals and stuff like that is, it's a good idea, but there's no way I'm going to be able to give them enough to consume for the entire herd to really genuinely be benefiting them, nor am I worth millions of dollars to be able to pay for all of that. So it comes down to an enjoy thing. But I will say the sense, like those ones I am doing strategically. When I'm putting scrapes out and stuff, I may not even be putting scrapes in places where deer are right now. And that scouting is not necessarily for scouting. It's from getting something established to where I know they're going to be rutting and they're going to be at, so that when they come in and they're ready to roll, it's already there. And or it's a scrape that I knew was there that I'm starting again, so that they're coming in for when I can hunt it. So in all honesty, after all that spiel, I have one thing that I do that I think is actually beneficial, and that is freaking driving around to look at them, because it's fun, number 1, and number 2, you can see, like, you get a good idea. I think there's been a couple times where we found deer that, before we get a picture of them or something, that end up showing up that we've got video of or something from a mile away or something.
So, moral of the story is, if you take inventory out of the equation, it's pointless.
Negative.
I don't think it's pointless.
How? You're taking, if you
hold on.
No, you got to already explain your part, and you already got to explain your part. So I get to explain my part.
Okay, explain your part.
Okay, if we're going to take out the fact of knowing where a deer is, okay, and then, because that's
like doing it so you know where a deer is.
If I drove around, let's just say for a second that there is no trail cameras, okay, no trail cameras. Now I'm reliant on trying to find deer on where they're at, okay. And now where this is more pertinent, in my opinion, is you're driving around. Let's say you have a new place that you're going to be able to hunt, and you find a deer in a bean field that's a big deer, and you have permission to hunt there, or it's public, or whatever the instance may be. One, he might be gone, right? So, but you,
by the time you're hunting,
yep. But you manage to put in a lot of time, and you find 3 or 4 big deer. Now is what you're doing is you're going to go probably and look through that property and look through that place, and you're going to apply the information that you've learned from other hunting seasons and other times, and you're going to be looking for rubs and things like that, and you're going to place those stands based on where you believe those deer are going to be, not what you're seeing during the summer. Now, this is only pertinent to Iowa. If your season opens September 1, summer scouting can be, you should be doing that, because you can kill those deer on those patterns. But everything we've said so far, if we take out, the only thing that we've said is inventory. Inventory. That just lets you know what's there. None of those are we actually applying to kill the deer.
Besides the one I just said, the scrapes.
That, yes. That would be the only thing. Other than that, though, all of the information that we're talking about, none of what we're using, none of what we're going out and doing during the summer that we've learned and brought in information, are we then overlaying that into fall and saying that this helped us kill this deer?
And the one place that what you were not taking into account is because we have history with every place that we're hunting. We already have that base knowledge of what they're doing, where they're going. Where someone who doesn't know that, you got a new farm, summer can be a great time to go in there and look. It's going to be harder to see, but you'll still be able to uncover some of the sign that should be there, especially, I mean, and these deer are going in and out. It may not be that they're doing exactly the same thing because the food source is going to change, even though the food source doesn't change, meaning it's green beans, you know,
Yes.
and then they turn brown later on, which may draw more deer and things like that. So,
let's define summer scouting then, though, because you're saying that's your only window. You could do that at any time, right?
You could, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's your only window, but I'm saying it can be just as effective. And I hung just as many stands when I was in new places in the late part of the summer so that I was already ready for the fall.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I would tell you I would employ there sometimes is, especially a new piece of ground, the place where I hung the stand was not necessarily where I thought I'd kill a deer from. It was a place that I thought I could observe what was going on and see quite a bit, and then knowing I'm going to have to move my setup into where I think I'm going to go.
A starting point.
Yep.
Okay. So
Is there?
well, I'm just trying so what information are we able to gain in the summer other than maybe what Easton's said with establishing some forms of community scrapes that are going to be with the anticipation they're going to get harder when the deer get there?
Yeah.
Really helps us kill deer.
Well, learning the terrain was, I mean, whether that's fence lines, whether that's creek bottoms, whether that's ravines. And one of the things OnX helps us tremendously, but nothing helps you like walking it. I mean, actually putting your feet on the ground and walking in there. I mean, what OnX can't show you is whether these three trees grew together that makes the perfect place to put a stand, whether none of the trees in there are capable of holding a stand. I'm going to have to think about a ground blind for this.
So
I
we
think
all
that's
agree that
something,
summer
too,
scouting
that-
is not going to help you kill a deer in the fall.
No, what I was just going to say for that
I
was a
disagree
lot
with
of that was to go walk your properties if you have new places and stuff, to go get into some of this stuff, to see what's there, what's not, or sign, whatever it is going to be a lot more beneficial for the majority of people. Some people don't care. To do those things now, summertime, versus doing those, let's wait till deer season or a week before deer season.
Yeah.
Because you're not wanting to. But what I was going to say that I think my clarification would be, I used to want a summer scout thinking that it would really, really help me long term. I think what I've flipped to is I'm not summer scouting as much as I'm summer prepping.
Yeah.
So like and that's totally changed as far as like now I'm focused a heck of a lot more on fields, things like trying to put fields in or food sources in and why I'm putting it here for the fact of when we're in fall, I think that it's going to draw this or possibly draw them during the summer to keep them there throughout the summer and fall. But that's where mine is switched from. Summer scouting used to be a large value to me, I'm thinking. But now I use it more of a prepping, getting stuff set up to where I think it's going to be beneficial for me, and getting in and just like doing my update stuff. For instance, you leave your stands out in a year, you need to go check your straps, crap like that. So I think my summer has become much more
chill.
Great time
not
to
chill.
shoot your
I'm
shoot
doing
your bow.
a freaking crap load more, honestly.
If I was
It gives me more time though, because now I'm not like, I got to go check this camera, or go put food here, here, and here. Now I'm like, no, go do the freaking stand work, even though it's hot. Go get this done. Go spray this field. Go put this water trough in for the fall, kind of crap like that.
the one thing I'd say, which I know this will make you mad, but just for fun here, if I was an Iowa public land guy and I had to go hunt public this year, I would do a shitload of summer scouting.
Why?
Shitload. Because is what I would be trying to do, and this is for a guy that is hunting public that's trying to kill a big deer, like a 160 plus inch deer. I would be trying to find 3 or 4
in that
toads.
area.
No, just any public I could, because I am sure that some of them are not going to stay there, and I'm praying that I'm going to get one or two that that their summer range is also their fall range.
Right.
And so then once I find him, I'm going to do what you're talking about, and I'm going to go and I'm going to walk that in the summer, and I'm going to take, if I've probably walked it already during shed season and have pins, but we'll just say theoretically I haven't. And I would go and walk it. I would be putting pins on places that I'd be putting stands and things like that, especially if you're doing the mobile thing, because I did learn that during mobile hunting, is that you don't want to be going into places in the dark in the morning that you have no idea, because you might end up in a tree where you can shoot 3 yards. I did
It
that
still
one
may
morning
work
with,
out for you.
Well, it didn't that morning with Eli.
The next morning it did.
Yeah, next morning we were okay.
I could see 10 yards this time.
But we got out early and went and found a tree where we could see.
Yeah.
So I would be, and I guess it's not so much of the summer scouting, it'd be the inventory thing. Now that I know I don't have a camera to try to send me a picture or whatever during fall, I am going to be trying really, really, really hard to find that freaking deer. And then is what I'd be doing is I'd also be spending, outside of elk season, probably the later part of September, maybe even the first several weeks in October, trying to I'd be hunting, but like off of where I thought that deer was, just trying to confirm that he's there. Mm-hmm. That would be the interesting thing that I don't know exactly how you do, is how do you let's say you did find 4, how would I bide my time to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to try this one tonight, because it's what I'm trying to do, is have one that has the same summer range as he does fall range, because that's where I think the stuff gets difficult. Just like BG, we don't have a single summer photo of that deer in his entire life, except for maybe 2, but I don't think so. But nothing at 3, nothing at 4. Didn't have a picture of him till the 28th of October, and then we killed him November 1, I think.
I think that I would tell anybody who's listening that I would evaluate your skill level. This is not saying like we're a certain skill level. I'm simply saying that if I was in a point where I felt as though I wasn't I didn't know some places super well, or I wasn't super, super confident in my ability to, like, I'm going to get in there on October 1st and do my saddle hunt or something where I've got a dang good feeling there's going to be some deer or something, or I've got some inclination type of deal. I would tell you, take the time to go do some scouting. Go set some cameras out during the summer and things to at least get an idea of where some of your deer are going to from, kind of thing. Because, they're not all going to do it the same way, but there's a good chance that if you have a ton of deer that are coming out in certain areas or whatever, that some of them are still going to be there and give you an opportunity for the sake of just hunting. You're not looking for something specific. You're just looking for either some meat in the freezer or a decent buck or something like that. It could be very beneficial. Now, if you're the type of person that, or if you're a new person, you're totally okay with going off the cuff and just winging it, I think you don't need to in that situation, because you're okay with getting in the season and you screwed something up and you're like, all right, I'll just adjust. I'll go over here this time and try this way. That's okay too. But I think for like Warren's sake, Warren, you don't feel like you have to plan or prep for certain things. I know you're not, and I think you guys all know that too, going off of his wedding. He doesn't care to plan. So he's okay with hopping into something totally hands-free, like, all right, got nothing, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to trust my instinct. I'm going to trust my ability from what I've learned in the past to get into the right spot and make it happen, and you can. And now I don't think everybody is in the same boat. So point being, I think that if you're to a level that you can really feel know your deer, feel the instincts that you gain over years and years of hunting to be able to just kind of on the fly make adjustments here, there, and whatever to get into that spot, summer scouting isn't nearly as beneficial. For the purpose of just trying to get yourself in a situation to understand where some deer are at in new areas, or you're a new hunter, I think summer scouting could be very important to help you.
I think Warren brought up the topic, you touched on it, that if you're a saddle hunter, I think summertime is one of the best times to go in and pick your trees, and even maybe do a little clearing. Don't do a whole bunch, because we've done that. I've made that mistake. I've gone in and cleared stuff in the summer. That's a mistake that someone can make if you are doing a bunch of summer scouting and hanging stands. Cleared all this stuff, man. I thought, okay, now you could do that intentionally, knowing that this is a spot I want to hunt early, that I need the canopy is way low and I need some of that off there. But know that, man, when it gets to be wintertime, you're going to be like a turd in a punch bowl sitting on that tree. And so that can be a bad thing. So you do have to have
err on the less side of it. You're
absolutely
going to clear some lanes out and stuff. Don't do as little as you can.
That is probably just some good information for
Just
in the event that there's any new hunters listening to this. We're not saying during the summer, if you're seeing deer coming out in a certain place, that we're not saying that don't go and put a stand there, especially if you're just looking for deer in general.
Mm-hmm.
There'll still be deer going out in that field and stuff at some point. It may kind of change over the course of the
Some of them
fall.
may change a few different trails or something, but they're probably going to
It at least get you in the neck of the woods. But also don't overlook other areas like in the timber where you've been, there's no sign here. I have no pictures because I can think of a couple places. One where I killed the deer you were just talking about, that there's not a deer in the timber in it at all during the entire summer. And then as soon as they start cutting that corn and everything, that sucker just loads up. So they just change some of their patterns. If there's one time of the year that I think that you can, outside of hunting season, that is going to kill 90% of your deer, it's shed season. Going in and seeing those trails and seeing the rubs and seeing everything's still kind of fresh, and you can get all that information and be marking that stuff on your Onyx, because that is going to be pertinent information other than the crop rotation. But I really don't think the crop rotation makes as big of a effect as everybody says it does. But
I know
that's
it
for
does.
another
I think
podcast.
it makes a huge difference.
You know it does too where I hunt.
It depends on what
Yeah, maybe some, but
I mean, it
Depends on
depends
if it
on whether
harvests.
if you got
if that deer, if
50
it's that
acres.
deer's home range, he don't care if it's beans, corn, alfalfa, or barley.
It matters how you can hunt it.
I was going to say it matters how he approaches
Yeah,
the
but
field.
it doesn't. I'm saying changing.
When he stays in corn for the entire year, how am I going to go do that unless I'm going
I'm
row
saying
by
where
row?
the deer is.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean,
I'm saying that I don't believe that.
I don't think they're going to
Okay,
go
it
pick up and
changed.
move.
That's what I'm. A lot of people will say that.
Oh.
That,
I thought
there's
you're-
corn over here, so they've all are across the block now.
I totally got jacked around the bush last year because I had so much
Oh yeah,
that
corn
was in that area that was totally screwing the amount of deer I was seeing.
It's still there though.
They were
Deer-
there, but
they're
my
still
point is
there.
that the
Yes.
crop rotation was now, instead of it being beans,
Yes.
I was like, ugh, because they're not going to just hang. I mean, they'll stay in the beans sometimes, but corn, they can literally live in it. So I was totally screwed on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the crop rotation can play a big role in what you're talking
Yeah.
about. You know, not necessarily will a deer leave because the wrong food is there.
I was waiting for beans this year in this field. I'm going to the next one.
But they very much can change some. And around my house, it changes their movement pattern for sure because the neighbor plants corn and beans and they're not the same. So just
Swaps it.
quarter mile away,
Yeah.
their beans are over here. Certain time of the year, the deer are there. So it can have a large effect. But
If I could give you one tip, what I would be doing right now, what I am doing when I'm not, or what I'm trying to get rolling on, if I can get ahead on our food plots at the moment, is I'm going and taking Scrape Addict, and that is one of our scents. And in case you didn't know,
It's
we did
back
not
in.
have it last
Right.
year. So that is my favorite scent of all time. I take that Scrape Addict because it's multiple different kinds of deer, or not kinds of deer, multiple different deer and multiple different glands instead of one or two specifics. And I will go into some of these places where I know there's lots of deer and I know they're probably going to be in that area, and start these scrapes with that so that they're starting to associate with it. And a lot of times I can, if I'm not even using a existing scrape, I'll just start one this early in hopes that it keeps rolling, and they keep hitting it, and they're becoming accustomed to it more so that it's becoming now a community scrape by the time I'm hunting. So that's one of my biggest ones and you don't even need to put a camera on it. I mean, just you'll know if the more and more they start hitting it, and you'll know the longer and longer you go, the better it's going to get. So
for sure.
that's my number one
The
right now.
the question that I'm already getting from guys is, when do you guys put your rub trees in? You know, and we don't do that until August. I mean,
You don't need to,
And-
simply for the fact that they've got velvet on their antlers.
exactly. I've never had. I shouldn't say that. We do have one or two that come up to the tree and sniff the tree, but they don't rub their antlers on
You've
it.
had
when
one
they,
or two where it looked like they were getting some of it off. Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, but
That's
they're
not
not.
the goal, though.
Yeah, they're not doing anything with the tree when they're still in velvet. They
Yeah.
got to start to come out of velvet.
And that is a good tip for the scent side is I would actually recommend not going to put them in. The longer you can wait to go cut some tree or like a limb or something like that, if you're putting, for us, like a white
more
pine,
fresh it is.
the fresher it's going to be. Instead of letting it dry, it's not going to dry out in the summer, but the fresher the better. So,
all right, I
think I know what he's doing.
Yeah, he needs to be. You got us a wacky fact?
Yep.
Facty whack?
I do. The first speeding ticket was given in 1904 for 12 miles an hour.
You know what?
Harry Myers of Dayton, Ohio, was issued the first speeding ticket documented in paper in 1904. He was flying at the lightning speed of 12 miles an hour through town. The largest, and that's just all it says, bonus fact, the largest speeding ticket fine ever given was presented to a man in Switzerland for driving 180 miles an hour, and it cost him a whopping $1 million.
What?
Speeding fines in Switzerland are based on the speed and salary of the driver.
Oh. So he had a Lambo, and everything. So they're like, yep. He could have been going 1 mile an hour over the freaking speed limit, and they're bopping him because they're gonna get part of that.
They're like, there's our state money for the department this year.
So racial profiling doesn't mean nothing compared. These guys got it in the government saying, depend on how much you make, that's how much we're going to fine you.
In Switzerland, it said speeding fines as well. So for him to be going 180, it had to have been some kind of exotic, I would think.
Yeah,
Come on, those are great.
It's just 1.
2.
My truck doesn't even go that high.
There it goes. Well, that was the one for the 12 mile an hour one. Because what the truck? I'd be curious to know. And maybe he's riding a horse. He was running through town too quick.
Well, I'm thinking that he had a car and that they were used to horses.
Yeah, it would have been one of the first freaking ones.
No, I think the Model T was like 1856. I just looked this up the other day. Pretty sure. It was before 1900s. I don't know, maybe. Number 3, we spend 2 weeks waiting at traffic lights. On average, we spend at least 2 weeks of our entire lives waiting for a traffic light to change. It may seem like a waste of time, but remember, traffic lights also save lives. That's freaking good.
No, I don't care to know that fact, and it's actually not even that much, as opposed to something like the amount you're taking a turd on a toilet is significantly more than that.
Think about, that's the average though. So you got to be thinking about there's people like us who are rural and then people in Montana and stuff that have hardly any time at traffic lights. So that's pretty much all urban people. They're probably actually spending more like
2 months.
Yeah, a couple months.
That's just more of a hint for you to not live there. Move away.
No, because then it's gonna infiltrate everywhere else. We want them to live there.
I agree. Live there. Stay there.
Yep.
That it?
Have an unhappy life.
That first one was good. I agree with Easton. The second one was kind of weak. All right, guys. Thanks for joining.
That's a democracy. That's 2 votes to 1. So kiss my ass. Let's go.
Here we go. Like I said, normally I apologize at the beginning of the podcast for the whole thing. Today, I don't think they got too out of hand, so it's been pretty good. But thanks for joining us. Again, as Warren mentioned earlier, drop your reviews, whether you're Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever. We appreciate it. It helps. Send in your comments. This is now, I feel like this is when you start to, I know it's way early, but I feel like we're rolling back into hunting season. So it's a good time you'll start thinking of tips and things that you're thinking about for hunting season.
Like buying yourself some scrape addicts so that you can go put a scrape out.
Awesome. Or maybe you need lighted knocks. We got lots of those, so you can check those out. And then, like Warren said, we got some new products coming. We can't tell you yet, but real soon. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you later.
That's 100 winks. 101 winks.